If you want a bigger Social Security payment, you might be able to get one if you're able to temporarily suspend your payments. So that's what we'll talk about here. We're going to go over how it works and some situations when you might do this, as well as some math. And we'll talk about pitfalls when you might not want to pursue this strategy. So, what happens when you suspend? Your payments stop, and then the payments are going to grow by about 8% per year. Technically, it's two-thirds of 1% each month, but when you add that up over 12 months, you get up to 8% per year. When you reach age 70 or any time before then, you can restart the benefit and then you get the bigger payments. And if you do nothing at all, once you hit age 70, the payments should automatically restart. That bigger payment can be helpful in a couple of different ways. One is a survivor benefit. So remember that if you have a spouse who might take over your payment, they will take over the bigger payment in the household and the smaller payment goes away. And if this is something you're planning for, you might want to maximize what that survivor benefit would be. Another biggie is that you're going to be less dependent on the markets. So the more income you have from Social Security, the less you need to rely on withdrawals from your retirement account. So Social Security will not stop paying retirement benefits for as long as you live, but it is possible to run out of money. So if you want to be as safe as possible, you might want to favor a bigger payment, even if that means spending down some assets. You might also want to try and get more tax-free income. So at least 15% of your Social Security retirement benefit is free from income tax under current law. That means the bigger your benefit is, the more dollars you get that are free of tax. And then it may also be possible to make more than 15% of your benefit be tax-free through some planning. And you might be wondering, well, what if the rules change to make Social Security entirely tax-free? Well, if that's the case, these other benefits would still apply. Let's look a little closer at some specific situations where the strategy could make sense. Tax planning is probably a primary motivation. You might want to take income strategically. When you pause Social Security benefits, you might have the opportunity to spend down from pre-tax retirement accounts or convert money over to Roth in relatively low tax brackets. In either of those cases, you're removing money from a pre-tax account and you're adding income to your tax return. If you use those strategies while you're taking Social Security income, that Social Security could take up some space in the lowest tax brackets. As a result, you'd be forced to take that income in tax brackets above and beyond where your Social Security might already put you. But when your Social Security income is optional, you can turn it off and then take advantage of those lower tax brackets. Remember that you'll most likely withdraw from those pre-tax accounts at some point to spend some money, and then in your 70s, you may even be forced to take withdrawals through required minimum distributions or RMDs. And if you have a substantial amount in those pre-tax accounts, those RMDs can get pretty big. Now, when your income rises above certain levels, you might notice a couple of different things. One is that you may just find yourself in higher income tax brackets, paying at higher rates. Another is that you might have to pay more for Medicare each month if you hit those IRMA thresholds. You might also miss out on certain deductions or programs because your income is too high. And again, under current law, more and more of your Social Security benefit might be included in your taxable income. All of those issues could potentially be solved or maybe reduced, hopefully, by taking income from those pre-tax accounts when you can at low rates, or by maybe converting assets over to Roth. And if you can get rid of that Social Security income, they should be even more effective. Another situation to look at is when you're still working. So if you have income from work, it might make sense to suspend your benefit. Maybe you're working part-time or consulting, or you retired and then went back to work, whatever the case may be. You might have enough income that you don't even need the Social Security at this point. If that's the case, then that money might end up just going into taxable accounts or bank accounts, and it might not do as much for you as you could get from Social Security if you get those 8% per year increases plus the inflation adjustments. And the money sitting in those accounts might just generate taxable interest and dividends that doesn't really serve you. A third situation is when you have other assets to use, and that's kind of like those taxable accounts, but maybe you inherit some money and all of a sudden you decide you don't necessarily need the Social Security income anymore. You could spend from those assets instead. That's a great opportunity to look at suspending. So, how does it work? You can suspend your benefit at any time after you reach your full retirement age or FRA. You do not need to repay any of the benefits you previously received. So you might be thinking of when you withdraw an application, that's something you might do within 12 months of starting benefits. But this is not withdrawing, this is suspending. So you get to keep everything you already got. You can restart the payments whenever you want. The payment increases with each month you wait. So you don't need to go in 12-month increments, and then you would not delay beyond age 70 because there are no more increases after that. Keep in mind that it does take time for SSA to process your requests to turn it back on, so it might not be instant. Now, current spouses, children, and others who are getting benefits on your record will stop getting payments if you suspend your benefit, but this does not apply to divorced ex-spouses. And you can suspend and restart multiple times if you want. That might make sense if you find yourself in and out of the workforce unexpectedly. How about some potential drawbacks of using this strategy? Well, the main one is that you're spending down some assets. You're going to have less available in liquid savings and investments. And that's not necessarily a terrible thing if you're going to get more income later and you can improve your tax situation, but it's something you need to watch. And remember that you can always restart benefits if you want. So if the market crashes, for example, and every withdrawal you take takes an even bigger bite out of your savings, then you can turn that benefit back on and stop the bleeding. Another thing is Medicare logistics. So if you are no longer getting your benefit payments, you need to actually manually pay Medicare premiums yourself. Just make sure that that's happening. And some people are concerned about Social Security's solvency. So they might worry about it going away and they want to get what they can when they can. And I think there might be pros and cons of that type of approach. If there was a 20% cut across the board, would you rather get 80% of a smaller benefit or 80% of a bigger benefit? But there are going to be other moving pieces there. And you also have to be mindful of the family maximum and some other rules if you're thinking about suspending, because you might not actually end up with more down the road. I hope this has been helpful. If it has, please leave a quick thumbs up and check out some of the other videos here on Social Security.